Welcome to session 2 of the book reading session of Rigveda, the historical analysis. Today we are going to be discussing chapter 2. In case you guys missed out on this first chapter's discussion, well, it's very simple. If you're watching this because you are a supporter on Patreon, so first of all, thanks a lot for your support. Really appreciate it. If you want to watch it, the link is going to be on the Patreon page. You can go and watch the first link. Otherwise, if you watch this and you don't watch it, then you don't get the link, because today's chapter is the composers of the Rigveda. Why you will not understand anything which is being discussed here is because the first chapter is the chapter where we discuss the Anukramanikas, which are basically like the index or the indices at the end of a book. And I'm not going to go into the details because you can basically click the link and watch that show. So what does this chapter talk about? So basically, Talagiri starts by saying the composers of the Rigveda are divided into 10 families. When he says 10 families, he means 10 priestly families. Like I had mentioned in the last discussion, the Rigveda has one priestly family, which is basically kind of in charge of one book of that sort. So these 10 families are identified on the basis of the fact that each family has its own Apri Sukta. Now, what is the Apri Sukta? In this whole chapter, the only thing that needs to be understood, to be very honest, is the second paragraph. What is an Apri Sukta? Now, as Talagiri clearly says, the Apri Sukta is a particular type of ritual hymn consisting of invocations to a series of deified objects, and they're said to be introductory to the animal sacrifice. Now, I want to ignore the chapter, the part of the animal sacrifice, because maybe somebody can dispute it, or was there an animal sacrifice or not. I don't want to get into the actual details of that, because that has nothing to do with the claim of the Aryan invasion or this book at all. So we will leave that book aside. But basically, there are 10 Apri Suktas and the 10 families of composers who they belong to. And Talagiri goes on and states the list. I'll state these for the record, because I'm sure if you are one of those lazy patrons, you're not going to even read that. So I'll just give you the names of that too. So number 1 is 1.13, the Kamas, the Kevala Angirasas. The second one is 1.142, the Angirasas. The third one is 1.188, the Agasthyas. The fourth one is 2.3, the Grihasamadas, the Kevala Bhrigus. The fifth one is 3.4, Vishwamitras. The sixth one is 5.5, the Atris. The seventh one is 7.2, Vashishtas. The eighth one is 9.5, Kashyapas. The ninth one is 10.70, Bharatas. And the 10th one is 10.110, the Bhrigus. Now, basically, what happens in the rest of the chapter is Talagiri goes about giving you a family-wise distribution of the hymns. If you look into page number, where is it? Yeah, page number 33 and 34, he's actually created a beautiful table, what he calls the family-wise number of hymns and verses, where he's literally gone into each mandala. Let's say, the Kamas. So in mandala 1, how many hymns and how many verses are there? So there are 27 hymns and 321 verses, and he's gone into it each in detail. And there are some obviously which are unknown, and Talagiri mentions it especially in the 10th mandala, which is the latest mandala. So number 10 is the latest one. In that, there is a lot of confusion about who are the authors, and Talagiri has gone ahead and mentioned and tried to explain that in detail. Honestly, even if you don't read that, this is my personal opinion, I mean, you should read everything. But if you skip that section about why those authors are not known, or why in some cases we can guess who the author was, is not really a focal argument, or it has nothing to do with the base of the Aryan invasion or the Aryan migration, if you ask my personal opinion. So that really is not the case. But why did I want to discuss this chapter separately? I'm going to put the book aside now, and I'll tell you why. Why is it very important to know who the composers of the Rigveda are? And here's the angle. The people who promote the Aryan invasion and the Aryan migration theory, they have a very significant claim. And a lot of times this claim has actually gone in a very silent way, without being challenged at a very serious level, at least in my interactions on social media. I know Talagiri has challenged it, but that's a separate issue. Talagiri is a scholar of this subject. But I'm talking about even when people who kind of understand or have a good understanding of this subject, like a reasonably good understanding of AIT, they kind of miss out on this very vital argument that is made on the other side, that they're saying, how do you know these guys are the authors? It's a very weird argument if you think about it, that they are questioning the very validity of the Rigveda, claiming that these rishis or these priestly families are actually the authors of the verses. They're like, they could have just cumulated it, these people, and said, oh, these are written by us. Now, here's my answer to that argument. My answer is very simple. The claim that these are not the authors of the Rigveda, or let's say, or of these certain verses. I'm not saying they are making the argument that all the verses are not authored by them. Could be, there are different arguments. They could say, oh, these verses are not authored by them, or only 10 verses are authored by the priests and the others are not. Let's not get into that. My point is that if somebody is making a claim, who's making a claim that they're not the authors? These guys are making the claim. If they're making that claim, they have to provide the evidence to back up that claim. I have not seen any evidence in regards to that. There is no evidence to say that the Rigveda, the authors, the priestly families that are mentioned in the Anukramanikas, and as in they are clearly declared as the composers of the Rigveda, whether it's the Kavas or the Vashishthas or the Bhrigus, whatever, are not the real authors. It's a very simple rule. In logic, we have something called the Occam's razor. Now, in case if you don't know what the Occam's razor is, so I will just read the simplest available definition of the Occam's razor, which is used, in the scientific method or in logic. It's basically, what it says is, Occam's razor basically means is that in case of a claim being made, if the evidence is not provided, then what you should go by is the most simplest possible answer. So if I was to use the often the Occam's razor in this case, it's very simple, that if there is no evidence provided by the people making the claim that the composers of the Rigveda that the Rigveda mentions are actually not the composers of the Rigveda, well, then the evidence has to be provided by them. But if they don't provide an evidence, then I'm sorry guys, my phone, let's apologize. So I'm really sorry about this. My phone rang. I forgot to put it on a silent mode. So let's use the Occam's razor on this case also, because there is basically no evidence being provided by the people who purport this or who make this claim that maybe the authors mentioned in the Rigveda are not really the author. Well, if you make that claim, you have to answer. You have to give the evidence. If the evidence is not provided, I'm going to go by the simplest possible explanation here. And the simplest possible explanation is what? The Rigveda states XYZ are the authors of the Rigveda. That means there are 10 priestly families, and these 10 or 12 priestly families have authored these verses and these hymns in the Rigveda, which are mentioned on page 33 and 34 of Talagiri's book. They are the authors. If you dispute that, please come up with a better evidence, or please show me the evidence. There is no evidence. I'm going to use the Occam's razor here and declare that these people are the authors of the Rigveda. This is a very important point for the validity of the Aryan invasion. We have to look at these people as the authors of the Rigveda, because if they are not the authors of the Rigveda, who the hell are the authors of the Rigveda? Where were they? Because again, think about it. Everything is intertwined. The Rigveda fundamentally talks about a certain geographical region. Think about it. The Rigveda only talks about the rivers which are in this area, the Indo-Iranian plateau, if you want to call it. The Rigveda only talks about the flora and fauna, which is the Indo-Iranian flora and fauna. The Rigveda talks about the things that were happening in this area, like the Dasharajnya war, the war between the 10 tribes, the war of the Purus and the other tribes, the Anus, Druyus, Turvashus, Ikshvakus, etc., etc. If these people are the authors, and the Rigveda most of the time keeps talking about things that are in and around the Indian area, then who are the bloody Aryans? It's very fundamental. So you have to think about it. It is not just one point. It is interconnected to a series of claims these people make. Like, I don't know if you guys watched my last open monologue on my channel, where I tried to talk about what is the Kurgan hypothesis. Because if they talk about the Kurgan hypothesis, right, then according to them, the Rigveda is authored by people who were basically in and around that Volga river area, right? if not the Volga River area, or maybe an area in and around that. But it's not India. But the Rigveda itself talks about only India. What we have is current India, Pakistan, a bit of Afghanistan. Basically, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, this area. We can go downwards till Gujarat, maybe. But the Rigveda doesn't talk about anything else. It keeps its focus, it's like a pinpoint focus on this geographical landmass. So they have to say that these people can't be the authors, because if these people are the authors, they keep talking about this area, they have to be from this area. It can't be anything else. So they basically try to dispute everything about the validity of the authors. They come up with weird arguments like, oh, maybe they forgot. I mean, how? I mean, why did they forget? And if, I don't know, I'm again connecting it to Devan, the Synthasta one, the date of the Synthasta is what, 2000, right? 2000. Yeah. So think about it. What is that guy, Tony Joseph? If you read Tony Joseph's book, right? So he says these people most probably were the Synthasta people. I don't know if you guys have read that. He makes that claim. I think in Talagiri's book also, Talagiri mentions that. So if these guys were that, and the steppe people are coming in by 1500 maximum, right? According to their thing. So in 500 years, they have forgotten everything about their past areas. They don't mention a single thing about their past. Just think about it. Just try and think about it. In 500 years, these people managed to change the entire name of the original. So if they claim this area had Dravidian names, right? That's their claim, right? They say the claim is what? This was a Proto-Indo-European, never existed here. So even we can't even have Proto-Indo-European names. So either the names have to be Proto-Dravidian or Dravidian. Otherwise, Indo-European language family comes from outside. These Indo-Europeans bring the Indo-European language family here. In 500 years, the movement is from Synthasta area to the Indus Valley civilization. In that time, they managed to wipe out all the old names, that there is not even a single river with the non-Indo-Aryan name in the entire Rigveda. Not a single name of an area that is non-Indo-Aryan. Basically, the Rigveda keeps using Indo-Aryan names, and all these people are from outside. How the hell is that possible? How did they forget everything about their native area? In the Kurgan hypothesis, David Anthony talks about something to back this up by, oh, it's very logical. What does he say? Well, you come in the land, you take over political positions of power, and you make people forget everything, and the entire history is wiped out. I mean, what? What kind of a stupid claim is that? Let's take America as an example, where David Anthony is from, by the way. The anthropologist is from. Now, when were the Americans? At least 1700s mein to pahunch gaye the udhar. America as a free country is itself 300 years old, by the way. So the Americans had reached by the 1600s se to udhar Europeans had started going there. Even in a 400-500 year period in America, did they manage to remove all the Indian names over there? They could not get rid of Mississippi. They could not get rid of Massachusetts. Heck, their football teams are still called Cleveland Indians, Redskins, and all that. The Mohawk. I mean, people, Mohawk is a hairstyle, but what the hell is a Mohawk? It's a Native American hairdo. So how could David Anthony could not successfully manage it in his own country? But the so-called Aryans, who originated according to the Kurgan hypothesis in the, the steppes, they came all the way here. They managed to wipe out the entire history. This is why I wanted to do this chapter separately, because these people challenge the authors of the Rigveda. They're like, these people are not the authors. Because if the Rigveda only talks about these things, then the authors have to be from the native area, na? The author has to be native to the land, because he keeps on talking about everything that is native to the land. The author is least bothered about the steps. Naito, see, just think about it. If your ancestors, you know how we are, right? Even in the Jati Varna matrix, just think about it. Like, I'm Khatri, right? So, I am used to my Nana or my Dada telling me stories of Amritsar or oh, we are this, we are that, and our tribe goes these many years back, and you have folklore. Who are these people? They really suck as a invader or a migrator that they don't remember anything from their past folklore. They did such a shitty job that they wrote an entire book after invading that land about only their area where they have invaded. They suck as invaders then. So now I think I've spoken enough. Now it's up to you guys. Whatever questions you have, I'm going to answer it.
Yeah, and I think not only did they forget about their homeland, I mean, even the so-called Dravidians and Tamilians who they drove away, they also forgot everything, that they were driven away from the north. Not only the Aryans forgot that they came from there, the South Indians also forgot that, they were moved to the south. That migration they have also completely forgotten, apparently.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, because if you look at the Sangam literature, it doesn't talk about anybody invading them and driving them out. Oldest Tamil literature. Or they don't like to admit to this point in the Thiruvallur. In the Thiruvallur, there are a lot of the language they use in the Thiruvallur many times is very Vedic. I forgot the name, man. Oh my god, I forgot who's that epigraphist.
Nagaswami?
Yeah, I think yes. The Tamil Vedas was the name of the book, Sri Hari.
I don't remember his name, but he's on this area. He's very good in this area.
Yeah, just give me 2 minutes. I'll just I forgot his book. I have read that book. I'm very sorry. I really suck with names. Like my
One interesting thing here is that if the Vedic, so-called Vedics, defeated the South Indians, then South Indians wouldn't have names that are Vedic. You see here, right in this group, my name is Debayan and even there is Sri Hari. How come they kept the names of the people who defeated them and drove them away? I mean, that's just not possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not able to find the name of his book. I don't know if it was R. Nagaswamy or someone else, but it was a famous epigraphist, and he basically looks into the entire Tamil literature. You know what I'll do is, I think I have favorited the link, because you can't even buy his book on Amazon. You have to go on their website. It was such a bad link, and you have to go on their website and buy the damn book. I promise you, I'll find out that link for you guys. It is an amazing treasure trove of evidences about how the South Indian culture is also pretty much the Vedic culture. I'm not saying that they were not native habits or or things that were rooted in uniquely in the South Indian. I mean, look at the Bhakti movement. It is basically from South India. It has spread across the Indian landmass from South India. We cannot deny that. Or even if you look at the intellectual traditions, many intellectual traditions don't start from Haryana. I mean, the Vedas start from Haryana, but if you look at Charvak, you look at Jainism, you look at Buddhism,
Adi Shankara is from Kerala.
Yeah, or you look at, for that matter, the Upanishads. They are not all Haryana, Punjab. They are all in Bihar. So a lot of your intellectual traditions were also from Bihar. Then you look at Tantra. Tantra is all Kashmir. Right? It has nothing to do with the Vedic pantheon in that sense. So modern day Hinduism is a mishmash of this exchange between a lot of people, where there are Charvaks like me, there might be Astikas like you, all of you, and we are a mishmash of that. Modern day Hinduism is a bhelpudi or a khichdi or a thali, whatever we want to call it. Modern day Hinduism is not. We are talking about old school, Sanatana Dharma. That was different. And we had different ways of dealing. Like as per Talagiri, and he is very categorical in his book also. He doesn't say the Vedas are the book of everybody. He is very categorical in his claim. The Vedas are the books of the Purus. There was a tribe. And if you read the Rigveda, which I would recommend you guys do in your lifetime, you will realize that yes, the Purus are talking from their point of view. And the Purus are talking about other tribes sometimes. They do talk about it. Yes, you can claim that, oh, these are bad translations, but I genuinely believe they are not bad translations. These are sometimes what happens is, if we live in the Aparashya realm, then we don't want to accept these things. But to me, the Vedas, the Talagiri point is actually very logical about the Vedas being a book. So my whole crux is that if we were to take something out of chapter 1 and chapter 2 is that we find no reason to doubt that the people that the Rigveda says are the authors of the Rigveda. And if we take Talagiri's dates seriously, where he says that Rigveda is around 3000 to 2500 BC, and it really, the old books and the Rigveda itself took at least 1000 to 1500 years to actually formulate and come up, is a very sensible claim where you see a shifting, not only linguistic change. Like the old Rigveda has very archaic Sanskrit, and the new Rigveda has different Sanskrit. It is more formalized. It is very much like the Atharva Veda Sanskrit or the Bhagavad Gita Sanskrit. If you read the Rigveda in Sanskrit also, if you read the Mandal, 10th Mandala, you'll realize, hang on, I'm able to get this a lot more. Then maybe, Mandala 5, Mandala 6, you will see that change yourself. Like I also saw that when I started reading it in a chronological manner. When I read Talagiri, then I understood the chronology of the Rigveda. When I read it in a chronological way, then I was like, hang on, the language is having a shift. It is becoming simplified and simplified for me to understand. And that's why these two chapters are very important, and we need to challenge this fundamental claim of a lot of anthropologists and linguists in the Indology departments, where they fundamentally question the very veracity of the authorship of the Vedas by the names of the names of the authors of the Vedas. So this is very important, and that's why I wanted to cover this. Now, Srihari, Anita, if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Kushal, is I just put up a name in the live chat. Is that the name of that book you are saying, like Vedic Roots of Hindu Iconography?
Oh yes, thank you very much. So you cracked the name of the book also. Oh, I suck at Google searches.
It's there in Amazon.
It's there in Amazon?
Yeah, but it's pretty costly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when I bought it, it was like 1500 or something.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, similar 1600 now.
Oh yeah. It's an expensive book, but it's a damn good book. So yes, it was Nagaswamy, and the book is The Vedic Roots of Hindu Iconography. If you want to see Southern Indian culture and the Vedic roots of Southern Indian culture, please read this book. It's a big book. Yes, I know, but look, I mean, there ain't no gain without any pain. If you want to give good arguments, then you have to work hard. I mean, I work hard, and that's when I'm able to give. And I'm not even a scholar myself. I'm just someone who's able to understand the scholarly work and disseminate it to the larger audiences. So I would recommend. Anita, do you have any questions?
I put it up in the chat. But basically, if the claim is very absurd, then why would they make it like them coming over the Himalayas with the chariots?
Yeah, so they make the claim that they came over in the Himalayas in the chariots. So I don't know what you say to that claim. It's actually a very funny claim. I mean, I just start cracking up every day. I mean, I just get reminded. So recently, I'll tell you a story. So I had gone to this book launch. It was Talagiri and Janal Bakshi. I'm sure all of you know Major Janal Bakshi, right? The man who screams louder than Arnav on TV. So he's a nice guy, but yeah, he screams a lot. So Major Janal Bakshi was giving his speech at that time. So Janal Bakshi actually made this point that, do you think we are idiots that they came in their dinky chariots across the Himalayas on top, and we're supposed to believe it? Do you think we are morons? so yeah. So the Janal Bakshi was his colorful self. So he did raise this point. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, Anita, I honestly don't have an answer other than that they're just stupid if they make that claim. Like they make the claim that, oh, we don't call it an invasion. And if you remember in the last session, and even in my monologue recently, I had touched upon this point. They only changed the title. They did not do anything else. They changed the title saying, oh, it is not an invasion. But the content below the title, right? Every post we write, there is the title and then there is the post. I mean, look at the news articles these days. News article, the article title is very clickbaity. And then when you read the article and you're like, hang on, this is not very clickbait. It's actually a sensible article. So what they've done is they call it a migration now, and then they explain an entire invasion then. Honestly, they're intellectually committing the worst thing one can do as an intellectual. They should be open and honest and call it an invasion. It is an invasion as per their evidence. They clearly say, like Witzel has categorically stated that they came from Afghanistan, they killed 10,000 people, they killed 5,000 people, they killed 1,000 people. When you're killing 10,000 people, what is it, a dance? It is an invasion, bloody hell, what are you talking about? Or just think about it from the DNA point of view. What do they say? You find the R1A1 only in the paternal side, not in the maternal side. Na? But why don't you find it in the maternal side? You should ask them this question. So they will give you, oh, so basically they killed all the men. Oh, they killed all the men, but it's not an invasion. Then what is an invasion? So you have to ask this question to them. You have to nail them and ask them, be man enough or be brave enough. I will not use the word man because I think it's misogynist. So I apologize. Be brave enough and own up to your own claims. Basically, they're calling an invasion a migration now. They might as well call it the Aryan dance theory now. That, they were dancing around, and in their dancing, some men were killed. And those poor men, while they were dancing, but the left hand hit them on the cheek, the right hand hit them somewhere else. And, they kept on dancing and people kept on dying. And then they danced with the women also. The poor Dravidian women, the Aryans danced with them. And the rest, as they say, is history. So, I mean, yeah, Anita, I'm sorry to say it's a very silly answer, but their question and their claim is so silly that, silly questions and claims deserve silly answers. That's what I say.
Yeah, Kushal. So I was listening to a pretty big talk, but it is very useful for me. So from Michael Witzel. So another person has joined.
Oh yeah, so Roshan Pai Ramesh. Hi, how are you, Roshan? Oh, he's left. I don't know. That's okay.
Yeah, so he was saying that right now, Michael Witzel and Romila Thapar mostly say they won't even say migration. They say it is even a trickling, right?
Yeah.
It's a trickling even, but I mean, it's as weird as it can get, right? I mean, the entire story and the trickling is even weirder.
Yeah, so if I was to look at it, let me pick out Talagiri's paper, recent paper. I think he does. See, I'll tell you. So let me. I'll read the exact word of Michael Witzel. The word that Michael Witzel uses, you'll find it very funny. Where is the blog? Let me find out Talagiri's blog. I hope his blog is there because he has a very bad habit of. Yeah, I found the blog. Let me search for Michael Witzel. So I quote, Witzel goes so far as to describe the process in the following incredible words. Small-scale, semi-annual transhumance movements between the Indus Plains and the Afghan and Baluchi highlands continue to this day. Just one. So what he's trying to say is that another quote of Witzel: revisionists and autochtonists still depend on the old 19th century idea of a massive invasion of outsiders, and that more sophisticated scholars talk about often immigration, or as we saw above, of small-scale, semi-annual transhumance movements between the Indus Plains and the Afghan and Baluchi highlands. But the problem is, like I said, they say that, but what they write in the material is another interesting paragraph of Talagiri's paper. So he says, as we saw, Witzel says that the only revisionist and autochtonists still depend on the old 19th century idea of a massive invasion of outsiders, and that more sophisticated scholars talk of an immigration. In an earlier paper, he tells us that the idea of a cataclysmic invasion has in fact been given up a long time ago by Vedic scholars. And then, in that very paper, he goes on to present us with a full-fledged invasionist account of the Indo-Aryan intrusion in Harappan areas. As per this account, the Indo-Aryans fought their way through the mountains of Afghanistan, storming innumerable mountain fortresses, once after a long and bitter 40-year-long campaign, and finally reached the Harappan areas. And on the plains of the Punjab, the Indo-Aryans had further battles to fight, and the Rigveda, according to them, is replete with numerous explicit descriptions of campaigns in which the Indo-Aryans destroyed hundreds of forts and on different occasions put to sleep, put down, or dispersed. All these three words are in quotes, as in these are the words used by Witzel. 30,000, 50,000, and 100,000 natives. How the hell is this a migration or a trickle down? You have any doubts, Shriyari?
No, no, not really. I mean, it is like almost feel like it is actually happened, because it is one hell of a beautiful story, right? I mean, it's so fantastic, right? I mean,
I have a question on the invasion part. So, from the 10th century onwards, there have been the real invasions from the Arabs and the Mughals. So, is that comparable to what their Witzel and the others are claiming? So, can we compare? And there is evidence for this invasion, the recent one.
Very good question. Actually, Anita, we can draw a very nice parallel from this question and we can discuss the Aryan invasion. Now, look at the Mughal invasion. When we had the Mughal invasion, how do we know that there was a Mughal invasion? The first primary source is the Mughals themselves. They, as you know, every Mughal had a court historian, right? So, with the very first famous court historian was, if you guys remember, this dude called I forgot the author, but the historical book was called the Chachnama. You guys remember, right? So there is a very famous book, the history of India as told by its historians. It was written by Eliot and Dawson. I think this book is available for free on the internet also. It's bloody 9,000 pages, and in that they basically, the most interesting part of that book, I'll tell you, was what it was: the foreword written by Eliot and Dawson. What do these two gentlemen say? So they basically say that you bloody Indians, you keep saying we are barbarians and we did bad things for you. Look at what the Muslims did. So they're basically justifying their barbarity or their barbaric behavior on the Indians by justifying what the Muslims did. And what do? They are very academic, by the way. You have to give it to Eliot and Dawson. The bloody Britishers at that time, even though they were killing us, they were very academic in nature. They're like, we will show you primary sources. The Mughal historians are saying, look, we did this, we did this, we did this. Now, I'm willing to concede that yes, the claims made by the Mughal historians, look, it's a very annoying man thing to do. We like to brag a lot about our aggressive campaigns. So, we can say that when they said that they kill 10 lakh people, maybe they did not kill 10 lakh people. They must have killed a few thousand or lakhs. But the point is, they definitely killed them. Then how do we know that they were barbarians and then they damaged us? They made very specific claims that we looted their temples, we destroyed their temples. Do we have archaeological evidences of our temples being destroyed or not? I think somebody has joined again. Hi, Roshan.
Hey, Kushal, sorry, technical issues. I had to, my phone keeps crashing.
No problem. So we're just in the session right now. We've actually 30 minutes in, so no problem. Roshan, can you just mute your mic so that there's no echo? And if you have a question, I'll definitely answer them. All right.
Sure.
Okay, so Anita, to answer you, as I was saying, that how do we find proof of an invasion in the case of a Mughals? So they made very specific claims, right? The Mughals had specific claims. They even took the names of the temples. And when we actually go and do archaeological digging, what do you see? We find temples below a lot of mosques. Now, I'm not going to get into the politics of that aspect. I don't want to discuss the Ram Janmabhoomi here because this is about Rigveda and the Avesta, and it is about the chapter 2, and we are having a discussion about a very specific subject. So let's leave all the politics aside. But we can clearly prove that there was an invasion, and we have archaeological and textual evidence from the primary sources in the case of the Mughals, which were the Mughal historians, the court historians, who very categorically say right from the Chachnama up to the Ani Akbari or the court historian of Aurangzeb. These guys had their own court historians creating a record of their barbarism. There is no other word for that. It was barbarism. In the case of the Aryans, they come from outside. We don't find any evidence. What we find is the only book that the Aryans, the so-called Aryans who came from outside, is the Rigveda. This is the only book they have, right? They got the Rigveda. What does the Rigveda tell us? The Rigveda keeps talking about petty battles between tribal chieftains happening in Punjab, Haryana, Iran, Gujarat, Maharashtra, these regions. So they can't draw any claims of an invasion on the basis of that. If you want to draw a claim that the Rigveda explains tribes arguing amongst each other, yes. The Rigveda explains about ritualistic aspects, metaphysical aspects, yes. But the Rigveda does not talk about any invasion. So their invasion has no claim, unfortunately for them, or whatever word we want to use it. But the basic problem has always lied that every time we look at the archaeological evidence, we just see what you call a gradual development of any culture, step by step. So you know what they call the mature Harappan phase is something around 3000 BC to 1500 BC. That is the mature Harappan phase, and after 1500 BC, basically the Indus Valley civilization collapses. Now, you could ask valid reasons as to why did such an amazing civilization collapse, and to be very honest, this is where geology comes. I think it was climate change basically that led to the collapse of the Indus Valley civilization. And as the Indus Valley civilization collapsed, you see a parallel development happening in the Gangetic basins. If you look at it, as the Indus Valley civilization is reaching its nascent stages, the older stages where it's about collapsing, the Saraswati is drying up and we're facing problems. And you see the Gangetic basin becoming a thriving civilization. Obviously, they must have had a 500 to 700 year overlapping period where the Gangetic basin also existed and the Indus Valley also might have existed, because now we are finding individual archaeological evidences of the Gangetic basin, which goes back a far older period too. So I'm not saying that the Gangetic basin was influenced primarily and only by the Indus Valley civilization. Don't get me wrong. What I'm trying to say is that yes, the Indus Valley civilization could have gone down because of climate change, but we just don't have any evidence of a non-violent migration, because that's not what Michael Witzel talks about. I mean, just for the benefit of everyone, let me even share the screen of the particular paragraph that I did read from Talagiri's map. So this is the paragraph of Talagiri's blog. You should actually, this is the part which is very clear. Talagiri mentions these things. This is another paragraph that you guys should hear. In another paper, he tells us that Indo-Aryans had new military techniques and tactics, especially the horse-drawn chariots, and that the first appearance of thundering chariots must have stricken the local population with a terror similar to that experienced by the Aztecs and Incas upon the arrival of the ironclad horse-riding Spaniards. So this is also very interesting that he keeps threatening everyone, but nothing happens. So this is also one more of the claim. So Roshan, because as you joined late, so what we discussed today was the second chapter, which is on the authors of the Rigveda. So I'll just give you a brief 2-minute update as to what is the problem and why did we have to discuss this chapter. Actually, chapter 1 and 2. So Roshan, if you've not seen chapter 1, because I know you've just become a patron today, so what I'll do is I'll send you a private link. You watch the first session also, because the first session was on what we call the Anukramanikas. The indices, right? The indices at the back of a book, which basically give you the details of the chapters and the authors. And the second is on the who are the composers of the Rigveda. Now, there is a certain claim being made by the Indologists that, maybe the Rigveda, calls XYZ are the authors, and they may not be the authors also. These are just people who made up names and put their names over there of certain people. Now, my answer to that is that we can use the Occam's razor, that if somebody is making a particular claim, that they have to give the evidence to back up their claim. You get my point? That if they make the claim that these authors could well be fictitious and, this just mumbo jumbo and whatever, well, then show us the claim of that. But because by that logic, then Buddha is not the creator of Buddhism, Mahavira is not the 24th Tirthankara and the formulator of Jainism, and, etc., Muhammad and Gabriel are also unreal. Now, if you make a claim, you have to back it up. if you don't make a claim that we are going to use the Occam's razor, which basically says that in the case of you know, a confusion, you just go by the most simplest answer. And the simplest answer in this case is, you know, the Rigveda says XYZ is the composer of the verse and the hymn, and these are the authors of the Rigvedas, of these mandalas, and we're just going to go by that version. So that was the part you skipped. In the second part, basically, Anita asked me, and we were discussing that, you know, as Srihari just mentioned, that he told me that, you know, they keep talking about a trickling down. There is no invasion. You know, only old, you know, Hindutva people are obsessed with the idea of an invasion. First of all, I mean, if you look at the first session, I categorically state that actually the Aryan invasion is a single most important factor for the entire Dravidian political movement in India. It is a single most important factor for the evangelists in India, the Southern Baptists and stuff like that, who are creating fissures in the tribal belt. And the Aryan invasion is the biggest single proof for the neo Ambedkarites in India. So first of all, the you know, the blame laid down by Girish Shahane on everyone, that, you know, the Hindutva people want the Aryan invasion to stay alive, is a load of rubbish. It is actually these three particular groups that want the Aryan invasion to stay alive at a social milieu in India. So Hindutva would be the happiest if Aryan invasion dies, to be very honest. For Hindutva, even a migration is far better than an invasion. Now what we were discussing is they now say, people like Witzel say that, oh, Vedic scholars don't believe in an invasion. They believe in small migratory movements. But what they have done essentially is they've just changed the title. They've called an invasion a migration, and now, after calling it a migration, underneath the whole, the text talks about an invasion, and I've shared a few paragraphs. So Roshan, what you could do is, once we end this session, you could just watch the first few minutes of the session. So that's pretty much it. So Roshan, if you have any questions now, go for it, because and all of you guys, you can go by one by one.
Yeah, thanks, Kushal. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm from Bangalore. You know, the Dravida politics will collapse if AMT, you know, is destroyed as a theory. I mean, the whole politics of DMK, IDMK. Kushal, I think you're on mute.
Could you speak a little louder? You're not very audible.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, sorry, I'm using my laptop. Yeah, is this better? No? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Kushal, see, you know, thanks for that. So I do fight this, you know, battle with all these, you know, the AMT supporters, including this Tony Joseph and his bunch of loonies around him. So the core questions, okay, that you cannot battle the two things. One is the existence of the Dravidian languages in the south. That's a tricky puzzle because they can beat you up with that, because it kind of gives them the credence to push through this argument that is unexplained, right? And the second one is the presence of you know, the R1A marker both in the steppe and in the Indian subcontinent. You know, some of them, like, you know, some places it reaches 70%, which is more than the marker in the, for example, in London where I am, the Brits have a lower R1A marker than some Brahmin population in India, which is like, you know, how do we counter that? How did that come in? I mean, of course, unless the theory is, I won't take much time. Okay, unless of course the R1A marker went out from India. Okay, and that recently the Rakhigiri finding is, I don't know. When I saw the Rakhigiri finding, I was really, you know, puzzled, because we are actually the AMT people will get a big boost from that. You know, because the Harappans didn't have the R1A marker. And now we have a huge R1A marker on the Indian subcontinent. These two, if we can fight these two, um, it's like a weapon. You know, do you have any thoughts on that? I know you have. You speak to the. I don't remember the name. The gentleman who wrote the paper.
Yeah, so it's actually nothing to worry about in the case of the R1A haplogroup. First of all, let me tell you, I don't know if you saw my podcast with Neeraj Rai. Neeraj Rai is coming up with a paper which is going to be published in December. And it's very interesting. I'll read a tweet because Neeraj was, Dr. Rai was today at the Pondi Lit Fest, by the way. So at the Pondi Lit Fest, Dr. Rai made this very interesting statement. Let me read it for you. I'm just
Yeah, I saw Ranganathan's tweet
I'm just
yesterday.
looking. No. So I'll give you the answer for the that let us clarify that at the genetic level first. So we'll look at it one after the other. So Neeraj Rai says the R1A haplogroup has its origin in India. Results will be published shortly. And he mentioned the same, by the way. He mentioned it first on my podcast, not on the Pondi Lit Fest. थोड़ा मैं अपनी लाल कर लूं इधर. So so that's besides the point. So let's clear that. But let us assume the R1A was not originated in India. Let us assume that. My first answer to you is genetics has nothing to do with the RNA invasion itself. This has been my biggest battle. For me, my biggest battle has been how the hell do I convince people that, okay, just think about it, Roshan. Buddhism, we are very absolutely sure Buddhism originated in India, in Bihar. No doubt about it. Right? There is no doubt Buddhism originated in India. There is no doubt Buddhism has spread across the world. No doubt about that. Tell me, did the gene fly anywhere? What has that got to do? RN invasion and RN migration at a fundamental level is nothing to do with genetics. See, what happened was this. I mean, I don't know if you saw my last monologue, which I literally did this week on my channel. I have to give you a basic understanding of what RN invasion is. They have this claim that, William Jones and that French guy, Lavenu or whatever, how you pronounce his name, I can't get French names. These people found similarities in Greek, Latin, Sanskrit. Then they built on that, came up with the Indo-European language family, right? The Indo-European language family comes up. Then they make the claim that looks like these are the same language family. Okay. Then they came up with the date that, around Max Muller came up with this date. Max Muller's dating is very comical, by the way. You should read Talagiri's book. So he basically knows the date of the Buddha. So what he does is 100 years, 100 years, 100 years. He had this mathematical formula and he dates it to 1500 BC. Now let us assume the steppe people came from outside. Okay. How does it prove that those people, those very people, are the ones who got the language in? If they got the language in, there are multiple things that they have to answer. If this was why they call it a migration? Because let's assume they would have always called it an invasion. They would have to show mass graves in India, right? Archaeologically, if an invasion happens, you'll see mass graves. And when you dig those graves open, the bone structure, you might have smashed, craniums. You might have smears. And because of that, yahan pe toota, wahan pe toota, that kind of a scenario will be happening. They don't find anything. All you find in the archaeology, which on my podcast, Dr. Shinde explains beautifully, all Dr. Shinde shows is, there is a gradual development of technology in a very slow, gradual way. And if there was an invasion at 1500 BC or 1700 BC or 2000 BC, your archaeology will show a huge spike. Because how do we know that? I just quoted Witzel. They got in new technologies, right? Witzel has quoted that, right? I just literally read Witzel right now. He quotes that they came and they got in new technologies. But where is the technology? The archaeology does not show a technology. Neither in the pottery ware, neither in the grey ware, nothing. There is nothing. So honestly, the Rakhigadi findings, all it shows it was a female sample, and the female sample matches 11 other skeletal remains. Where are those skeletal remains? In Babylonia, in all those other areas. It has nothing to do with anything with the Aryan invasion. The funniest thing was Neeraj Rai literally said that today. All the non-experts in India are convinced there is an Aryan invasion and a migration. Neeraj Rai used these words. Now look, the whole confusion has come from where, those two paragraphs in the Cell paper and the Science paper. Now first get this right. The Science paper was written a year and a half ago or a year ago. That time they did not have all this Cell data, which was published here. Also, I want to categorically state that on my podcast, Neeraj Rai openly said at least a year and a half ago, he himself believed in Aryan invasion and Aryan migration. So, I myself believed in Aryan invasion and Aryan migration up till a decade ago. I only changed my mind with no genetics. I came across this man whose book we are discussing. And I was like, hang on, this man actually makes sense. I didn't trust him at first. I looked at his sources. I literally went to all his references and I checked all of them. I didn't trust him then too. I went and read the damn Rigveda. I was like, ye kaisi text hai? The text does not talk about any invasion. What does the Rigveda talk about? Metaphysics, war between tribes in the local area, some okay weird claims as far as I'm concerned, metaphysical claims or spiritual claims, but it doesn't talk about any damn thing of we came from outside, these people suck, we invaded them. Their entire basis is what they analyze it from the basis of the Rigveda, and then they say, look, the Rigveda says this, the Rigveda says nothing. Also, one more clinching point, Roshan, always remember, now you live in the West, right? You just said you live in the West. Now, the West has old river names in Europe before the Europeans even were native to that land. They have old river names. I forgot the names of the rivers, but Talagiri in these books itself, Talagiri does talk about those river names itself. And if you read Talagiri's blogs, I think in one of his blogs also he's mentioning that. But think about it. You go to America, right? Like I gave the example of America because it's easy to remember. Now the Native Americans have been colonized by the Europeans in Americas too. Yeah, you just gave the name in the chat. Mississippi, Massachusetts. Look at the teams, the baseball teams or the American football teams. Redskins. Now look at the Rigveda, Roshan. There is not even a single non-Indo-Aryan name in the entire Rigveda. Do you really think an invasion happened and there is such a number on them that not even a single old name is retained in the entire bloody book? The book is 1,000 pages. The book is written over 1,000 years. Even according to those buggers who claim the Aryan invasion, it is written over 500 years. Even according to them. They also say कि नहीं 500 साल तो लगे लिखने को. And in 500 years, they come in, they take over the political claim of the country. They think about it. Trickle down, right? That's what Witzel says. Oh, these were small migrations. They came in, but they took over the politics. They took over everything. And then they convinced everyone else, okay, forget your river names. Forget the names, all the native names. All the native names are Indo-Aryan. How can that be? Now to your point about Dravidian languages, I see no problem in that. Why can't a single mass of land have different language families? I mean, why not? My question to you is, why not? Yeah, so Dravidian languages also developed here. Now, the key is what connections will we find to Dravidian languages and Indo-Aryan languages in the Indus Valley script. That is the key. See, right now we have not cracked the Indus Valley script. Anybody who says they have cracked the Indus Valley script is basically talking gobbledygook. Either anti-AIT or pro-AIT. I'm being very open to you. Now, once we crack the Indus Valley script, see what the Indus Valley script is pretty clear. It is pictographic. It is a pictographic script like Mandarin, the Chinese script. You know how the Chinese script is? Like in my last video, I clearly state, like in Chinese, an argument is represented by two women. I apologize, Anita. You can blame the Chinese. It has nothing to do with me. So that's the Chinese script. So to represent an argument, they show two images of a woman. Of women. Now, obviously, the Chinese, their script is very developed. They have more than 4,000 pictographic characters to represent their words. But in the Indus Valley script, we hardly have like 300 to 400 characters. It was not even a very developed script or a language, or at least we have not found the evidence of more than 300 to 400. Now, once we crack that, we might be able to find connections maybe to it was a sort of a proto-Dravidian and a proto-Indo-European. It might have had words which are known to both sides. And then genuinely, these people must have separated off. And think about it, Roshan. Right now, we are talking to each other where literally I'm right now talking to 3 people and before that 4 people who are in 4 different countries because of the internet. But the ancient man had no internet. You could just live 300 kilometers away from someone and could live an entire life of isolation 7,000 years ago. You'd not know jack shit. So it's very natural languages could have developed separately. I mean, I see no reason why the Dravidian languages are such an, such a, what you call, anomaly here. It's actually very logical. Different language. India, by the way, India does not have the Dravidian languages family. We have the Sino-Tibetan too. We have the Indo-Aryan. We have 4, I think, either, kitne hai, Devayan? I think 6, right? We have 6. 4 or 6. No, we have more than that. Just think about it. The Sinhalese is Indo-Aryan, right? The Sinhalese that is spoken in Sri Lanka. I don't know how they managed to be there, but they ended up there. The Brahui, which is in Balochistan, a small sect in Balochistan, I think they are a Dravidian language family, Brahui. So it is what it is. I mean, people spread around. That doesn't prove that somebody came from outside. Okay, and let us think about it, Roshan. Let us assume that they did invade and they pushed the Dravidians. The oldest Tamil literature, which is the Sangam literature, right? The Dravidian literature, the oldest Dravidian literature is the Sangam literature. Do they talk about being pushed out? They don't. How is this that, come on, man, somebody even gives you a small dhakka, you'd remember it. Here, the whole bloody people are pushed out from one corner of the land to the other, and they seem to love it so much that they've fallen in love with the person who's pushing them. This has to be some serious level Stockholm syndrome. And we can't have a serious level Stockholm syndrome at the end of the entire population, where we forget all our original names, we forget everything basically. We have no trace. It could well be that these people originated here, moved out. Now think about it. If you look at the genetic evidence of these people, the Rakhigadi skeletal remains, and it has only one thing in common with something all the way in Mesopotamia. Could it happen that these people must have broken off and they had trade and exchanges with different parts, and these people must have gone, I'm not using the word invasion here, I'm going to be very responsible. Maybe they messed with those people over there. Could be. Maybe these Indus Valley people, they branched out of India and they messed with them. Nobody has given this a very credible thought. Maybe if there was an invader, I use it with quotes, invader, it was the bloody Indus Valley people. They went around and they messed with everyone. Could well be the case. It could happen. Then let us wait for more evidence. Look, for them to have a clinching evidence. See, they said they did not find a horse. Now we found a pony too. Now what are they going to do? See, previously they used to say, where is the horse? Where is the chariot? Where is the horse? Where is the chariot? They keep crying. They used to cry all the time, right? Now we found a house. We found a chariot. Now they have changed the goalpost to genetics. See, every time a new evidence comes, they change the goalpost. They say, नहीं ये तो cheating है, अभी हम ऐसी बात करेंगे. You have to be consistent. Every time they ask for one, we give them one. Then they say no. See, honestly, I also am willing to concede that there is not a very strong evidence for an out of India theory also. I am willing to be agnostic to that. I don't know. It could well happen. You see, a lot of times, I'm going to use another example. See, a lot of times we keep battling and quibbling over things like, oh, this mathematical thing was invented here. We are never humble enough to say, maybe it got invented individually everywhere else at different times. See, in the case of Al-Khwarizmi or Al-Biruni, they categorically say that book is bloody called Al-Hindi. So we know the author is saying, I got it from Al-Hindi, the Hindus. So we know he got it from us. But maybe the Egyptians also had some mathematical people. Maybe the Greeks also had some mathematical geniuses. And maybe the Indians also had some mathematical geniuses. I mean, come on, at your individual level, all of you, I mean, I'm sure you must have had some original thought in your head. not because you heard it somewhere and then you Google it and then you're like, damn, this is already thought by someone else. Are you saying you're copying someone? No, you came up with it originally. So it could be now agriculture. If you remember, another major claim which is basically smashed completely by the Cell paper is that they said around 7000 BC, the Indo-Iranians, the Iranians got agriculture, right? It is mentioned in Tony Joseph's book also. Tony Joseph plays to both sides. Could happen, could not happen. In the book, he says both the versions. Early Indians is the book I'm talking about. But now, the Cell paper has categorically proven that agriculture was invented or started independently by the Indus Valley people by themselves. Does that mean that other people could not have come up with agriculture by themselves? Yes. So what do? Human beings, man. I mean, we're all primates. At the end of the day, we survive. We come up with things individually in different silos, different places in the world. Just think about it. Darwin was not the only guy who thought of natural selection, right? In fact, if you think about it, I keep forgetting the other guy who literally sent his paper to Darwin. And if he would not have sent his paper to Darwin, Darwin would have been, who cares? I'm not going to publish my paper on natural selection. It is only when Darwin thought, oops, he also thought of it. Then Darwin submitted his paper and said, bhai, I thought of it before him. These are my evidences. Look, I thought of it before him. But the point is, different people can think of the same thing at different times. So to base these claims that, oh, these people had it, maybe they got it over here, I don't buy it. The evidence does not suggest the Aryan invasion. Migrations is also a wrong word. I think Dr. Neeraj Rai used the perfect word in my podcast. He said we had movements. The Steppies people came in, that was a movement. The Onge people, who are the first Indians, 65,000 years ago, the Africans that came here, there was a movement. There are different movements at different time in India. The invasions, if you want to call it, were the Turks, the Mongols, the Huns, the Kushanas, the Greeks. These you could call invasions, maybe. Alexander was definitely an invader, right? He didn't come here to sing Kumbaya with us. So we can use different words. What we have in the case of the steppes is, yeah, people came in. Nobody's denying that. Neeraj Rai never denied that the people came from the steppes. He's saying, how do you prove, or I'm saying, or everybody else, or Talagiri is saying that, how do you prove that these were the people who spoke the Sanskrit language, brought the Rigvedic culture and set it up? I hope that answers. Sorry about the long answer, but it had to be a long answer. Okay, any other questions? Devayan, Anita, you have any other question?
No other questions for now. Thanks, Kushal. This was really very informative. Very entertaining.
Roshan, you have a question? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think just one small question. See, has anyone looked at figuring out if Dravidian and the Indo-European languages have a common proto-ancestor? Because I know Kannada, okay, and I speak Konkani, which is Indo-European. Kannada is Dravidian, and there are a lot of similarities. I'm not a linguist, okay, but no one has ever explored the possibility that potentially these two languages could actually have a parent, maybe whatever 7,000 BC or whatever pre-Proto-Indo-European. I don't know. Does you know anything about some research in that area?
Look, as far as I know, the Proto-Dravidian and the Proto-Indo-European, as far as the current linguistic thinking is gone, is they have been developed completely differently. But like I told you just before, that the answer to this lies in the Indus Valley script, I think. The Indus Valley script will put up a lot of light on all these things. Once we crack the Indus Valley script, we might be able to answer these questions. As of now, I think what I can do is I can recommend a blog by Conrad Elst on the Indus Valley script. It will take you a lot of time to read. I am warning you, it is extremely boring. You might sleep 50 times when you read that bloody blog. Did I share it in the last video, Debayan? or did I share it in my last monologue, that blog?
Yeah, you're supposed to post the link there. I didn't see it though.
No, I did share it in my monologue. So Roshan, if
Right,
you,
right, right. In the
yeah,
monologue you
the
did, yeah.
monologue I have posted, sure, I did share the screen also, and I shared the link in the live chat of the monologue I did on Aryan invasion. If you read that blog, you will understand a lot about the scripts and the commonalities and the differences and how they've come up and developed. I don't really think Dravidian and Indo-European have a common ancestor. I think those language families have developed independently, but I could be wrong if the Indus Valley script proves me wrong. But I don't think so. They have come up together. And I really don't think them having a common ancestor is really needed, because we have so many. I mean, we have the Austro-Asiatic also, we have the Sino-Tibetan also, then we have, so many other language families also. They all have come up independently, right? But why do we always have this special question only for the Dravidian language? Just think about it. Why don't we have this question for the Sino-Tibetan language family? Yeah, the reason Kannada and Konkani are very similar. Look, you have the affinity of the border, right? I mean, think about it. You have basically bordering states, right? Karnataka and Maharashtra. So we are going to borrow words. Now look at current day Tamil. Current day Tamil, 40% of it is Indo-Aryan words. And so many of the current Sanskritic words are also derived from Dravidian language family also. So that I think is just people exchange genes and memes both, right? So with the genetic exchange, we're going to have a mimetic exchange also. So as and when people started being more mobile and we travel more, so you're naturally going to have Kannada and Konkani having a lot of similarities, just like any other thing. Yeah, so Devayan has mentioned a good thing. Talagiri has a language blog on languages also. You should read the language blog also. I mean, see, at the end of the day, these things are not that big a deal. I mean, just think about it from an evolutionary perspective. I mean, I always give the example of a Mumbai slang, right? The Mumbai slang is a mixture of Gujarati and Marathi both. Why? Because this state was basically the state of Bombay, and then it got divided into Gujarat and Maharashtra. Mumbai as a city has two major cultural influences. The first cultural influence is the Marathi influence. The second cultural influence is the Gujarati influence. So the Mumbai slang is a major mix of a lot of Gujarati and Marathi words. We have so many Gujarati Marathi words. Like if you've noticed this, even when people from Maharashtra speak in Hindi, we don't use the word pyaz. We say kanda. Have you noticed that? If you meet someone from Mumbai or Maharashtra, even when they speak Hindi, they will say kanda. They will not say pyaz. Now, why are they doing that? They're speaking Hindi and they're putting in a Marathi word in that. So the reason you find Kannada and Konkani having these exchanges is because they're bordering states and people kept on meeting each other and languages evolve, man. Just think about it. Look at where English has come from. Such a long way. The thou, thy. I mean, who the hell speaks like that? I mean, people don't realize that the word eight, it actually is pronounced et. I didn't know that. Some old British fart once reminded me about this. I was like, it's pronounced et. It's not eight. I was like, okay, uncle. I was like, why are you correcting me? I mean, I don't care. Or, and it's the same word. Somebody says often, somebody says often. It's just, how we come up with accents. People meet each other, they exchange ideas, and languages just get jumbled up. I think, a lot of Hindi purists are really frustrated with the idea that, they say Hindi bhasha ka balatkar ho raha hai. I could care less personally. I mean, yeah, languages keep changing. Look at what's happened to English. How many Hindi words has English adopted? Machan, thug. Thug is the bloody hell. They literally racist people. They use the tribe. So, even the English language has got so many Hindi and Sanskritic words. So people adopt words from each other. They borrow words from each other. And then it becomes a part of the lingua franca. So that's not a big deal. Even after that, I think it could well happen that the Dravidian language family came up independently and the Indo-Aryan language family came up independently. It's not a big deal. I don't think so. It's a big deal at all. The same people at that time could stay completely isolated from each other within a distance of 300 to 500 kilometers, because they did not have any mode of communication, no telephone. I mean, just think about it. These people had no transport, so they were not connected. So they came up, and human beings have common evolutionary courses. So so I mean, now you have to use Noam Chomsky, leave his foreign policy views aside, but Noam Chomsky and his coming up of the concept of language itself. So the brain has an encoded grammar. The brain itself has a grammar encoded in it. So if we as a species have grammar encoded in ourselves, languages are going to develop in a certain way. Those languages could be completely different from each other, but naturally we will develop language as a species. So it could well have happened these human beings, even with the same genetic stock, they got separated, and once they got separated, they came up with individual things. And then you have the Dravidian language family, you have the Sino-Tibetan language family, you have the Indo-Aryan language family, you have the Austro-Asiatic language families. You have these language families. It's as simple as that. Could well be that they have a common ancestor too. I'm saying it's unlikely. Could well be that could happen too. I don't see the evidence for that. I hope that answers your question. All right. So I guess we're done. Everything else? No other questions, right? All right. Okay. So I guess we'll wrap things up. Once again, thanks for everyone for coming for today's session. Now, next time is going to be a big chapter. We're going to be discussing chapter 3, which is the chronology of the Rigveda. That is going to be a tricky one. That is the most important chapter. I think that is the backbone of the entire claim Shrikant Talagiri makes. Not only is it the backbone of the claim Talagiri makes, it's the backbone of the entire debate of the Aryan invasion, Aryan migration. Because once we understand the chronology of the Rigvedas, we understand everything. But because why is the chronology very important? Because there are certain names that are mentioned in the old books, certain names that are mentioned in the new books. And according to that, we can literally track and chart a course of the movement of these people. And according to Talagiri, when we use the chronology of the Rigvedas and we understand all those things, we see a movement of people from the east to west and not west to east. So on that note, I'd like to end things for today. Once again, thanks a lot for coming and watching this. If you're going to watch this later, thanks a lot for watching it later too. Till then, namaste, goodbye, good night, take care. See ya.
Thanks.